Hello, hello, and welcome to our first official video, I guess, for the Growth Mindset Tips newsletter. I want to make sure that I cover all learning styles, so there will be a blog and also a video to go with each tip that we do over the weeks. Today's is going to be a little bit longer just to help people, I guess, understand a bit more of the background of it, have a bit of an understanding of what I'm trying to do, and how it can look in your home or in your classroom. So today's will be a little bit longer. I'm going to split it into two. So I'll do the theory base, I guess, for growth mindset, and then with a little bit of a twist on perhaps how it's intended to be used rather than how it is often used by people and companies and schools and stuff. So there will be a little bit of insight into that. And then the second half will be just a really basic, simple tip on how to use that depending on the age of the child or the setting that you're in, whether you're in a school or a daycare or you're in a home as a parent. So that's the plan. I will separate it into two for you. If there's any questions, you can put them in the post where I'm going to post them into the Facebook group. It'll go on the YouTube channel. And the blog post will obviously be on the blog, so I'm not too hard to find. If you have a question, please let me know. And let's get started. Let me find my screen. I think we can put it there, and I don't know if I should leave my face on there or not. Let's see, I think maybe I'll get rid of my face. Let's go into present mode and it can be full screen. Okay, so I guess the main question people ask is, what is a growth mindset? And the second biggest thing is, well, how do I get started on that? So those are the things that we're going to cover today. These are Grow Kids' Minds, special superhero characters. The idea with the children is to help them understand that they all have a superpower, and a lot of the time the superpower isn't something that's always a natural thing. Sometimes it takes some perseverance, and sometimes it takes a little bit of failing to get there and all those sorts of things, and those are superpowers into themselves. So we'll talk more about those as we go along as well. Okay, so what is a growth mindset and how do I get started? So this first part is going to be the theory. Just an understanding so that you can understand a little bit about the background of what is growth mindset. So it's developing your ability through dedication and work. So a lot of the time people, or kids particularly, think that they have to be good at something, they need to be intelligent, or they need to be talented at that thing, and that's not necessarily the case. You can actually achieve a lot of things just through dedication and working towards something. And with that in mind, learning is continuous. So there's no, okay, I've learnt that and now that's it, it's finished. Learning continues. You continue to go and grow. And it's important for kids to understand that it's not really an end point. Learning is something that continues on and on and on. And then it makes it easier for them to understand that they're not going to get to the end of it. And that's okay. Intelligence and talent are a starting point. So, you know, of course, there's always children that are going to be naturally good at something just from the beginning. So, you know, they might be good at sport, or they might be good at math, or they might be good at writing or reading or piano or dancing or whatever it might be. There's always going to be that level of intelligence and talent that some children do have, and that's a starting point. So it's important for them to also recognize that's a starting point for them, and they can get better. But for the children that it's not necessarily their talent, then that's okay too, because we come back up to the top here, and with some dedication and work, we can actually get to the same point, if not better, than some of the children that start with the intelligence and talent. Challenges are necessary for improvement. So a big thing, especially with kids, I'd say probably from 6 years up, they really start to have that fear driven into them that I need to be able to do this now, I need to understand it, and it's supposed to just happen, and I'm supposed to get it the first time. And so it's important for us then as parents and teachers to help them understand that challenges happen in all parts of our life, and a challenge is actually necessary for us to improve and to get better at something. And one thing that I like to do with this stuff is to focus on self-responsibility. So it's the responsibility of our children and our teens to take care of their own learning and to want to improve themselves and to step up to the challenges and to be okay with failure. So I do a lot of focus with the kids on them being responsible for their actions and their choices. And so as we develop through the weeks, we will talk more about that as well. Okay, so where did it all start? Now, I do want to say, and I'm sure I've put it in here somewhere, that this whole growth mindset concept, this has been around for years and years and years. We've all been doing it for years and years and years. It's just hadn't been labelled. And so I always use the example with the children of a baby. Where as humans, we were already learning to grow from a baby. It naturally happens to us. So it's already been happening, but there was this lovely lady, Professor Dweck, Carol Dweck, and she was the first one, I guess, to really study mindset and to be able to label it. And what she did was she wrote a book called Mindset, the New Psychology of Success. And within that, she goes through some of the things that we're going to talk about. I feel that some things have been a little bit misinterpreted when they've been actioned. So I may be taking a different route to what you may see in other situations, but the end result is still the same. So the point, was that it has been used for years in classrooms, with people in general, with anything that's living, we grow. And so it's already been in existence, and it just might not have been labelled and categorised previously. So she's gone ahead and she's done that. That book's quite a good read. It doesn't just look at kids or anything like that, or classrooms. It actually looks at business as well. So that's actually how I came across it initially. Okay, so we've got famous people that have been doing this for years: Tony Robbins, Oprah, The Secret, if you remember that movie/book, which is based on law of attraction. These things have been around for years. Businesses have been doing it for years. If you look at the history of Colonel Sanders and KFC, he traveled across America. I think he went to some crazy amount of lenders at the time trying to get finance for this crazy chicken idea. And he maybe it was 200 or 500. I probably should have checked before I did this. But he went around and trying to look for finance for someone to get on board with this chicken recipe, this 9 secret herbs and spices. And it was just no. And then someone finally said yes. And now still today, obviously we have KFC. It's in multiple countries across the world. It's a household brand in most first world countries. So that mindset, that persistence and perseverance stuff, that's been around for a long time for that. Our bodies naturally lean towards a growth mindset. I use motor racing as an example. That's something I've had a lot of history in. And one thing that you always talk about with the drivers, if they crash, it's often because they've looked in the direction that they've crashed in and they haven't been focusing on where they want to go. So motor racing and sports are really good for that. They're always trying you to be looking where you're going, not looking where you've been, not looking at something else off to the side. You have to be focused on where am I going and taking that path to that end goal. And in the classrooms, it happens a lot in our mind in general. So the way that we're thinking relates then to the words that we say, and that impacts the actions that we take. And we'll look at that a little bit more as well. So classrooms, at home, at our grandparents' house, in the library, all those different environments that we're in our own mind, and we do a lot of self-talk. So the self-talk that we do and that our children do, they're things that we're going to tackle as well. It is based on self-perception, and Dweck calls it a self-theory. So it's how you think and label yourself, which is what I was talking about with that, our mind side of things. So, if we're saying we can't do something, or we're no good at maths, or whatever the case may be, then it's how we're thinking and how we're labeling ourselves, and that's going to affect the results that we get, and it's affecting our mindset overall. Okay, so why is this important? The way we think determines our inner self-talk. So, you might be thinking, maybe you're talking with the kids and you're doing the homework with them, and that maths is a little bit tricky for you, or it's a new strategy you've never seen because we've been out of school for 30 years, and your mind's going, oh, I was never good at maths, I can't do this is terrible. And so that thought that you're having about maths, this new strategy, turns into an inner self-talk about how you weren't good at maths before, and now you're still not good at it, and you can't understand this new strategy, or whatever the case may be. And the same can work the opposite way. So maybe you pick it up, you look at the strategy, you're like, oh yeah, okay, I can get that. And your thinking is, okay, here's a strategy, let me work out how to do it. And then the inner talk is along the lines of, oh yeah, I always loved maths, it was always easy, I could do it, you just had to sit down and work it out, or whatever the case may be. So the inner talk, the thoughts that you're having, predict your self-talk, and that can be positive or negative. And the same thing happens with the kids. So whatever our inner talk is then determines our outer talk. So oftentimes, if you didn't have a good experience at school with a subject, you talk about that with your children when it comes up in one of those situations. Or if you did have a good experience, you would talk about that as well. And then how you talk about it determines the actions that you take. So if you didn't experience maths in a good light at school, and your inner self-talk is not so good, then you might talk about it as, oh, it wasn't really my subject either at school, I wasn't that good at it, don't worry. And then you'll just kind of put it to the side, or give it to your partner, or whatever else to help the children with. So inner talk, so our thought predicts our inner talk, which turns to our outer talk, which turns to our actions. And that obviously affects the results that we're going to get, because if we put it to the side and don't bother learning it, we're never going to learn it. And if we're the opposite way, if we take it on board and we go for it, then we're showing those strategies of, okay, I can't do it yet, but I'm going to work out how to. And something I want to touch on here for those of us with teens, or those tween ages, they're coming into teens, tweens, into their 20s, things like that. The percentage rate now for 20-somethings that they're more depressed and unhappy than ever. And so I feel like this growth mindset's coming as a theory that's being expressed now. I think it's coming at a perfect time, because before, when you were going through school, there was a lot of positivity. It was all positive. Yay, you could do it. Everyone gets a prize. Everyone's wonderful. Everyone's amazing. You're all fantastic. And then those kids, you can't blame those kids. They grow up with that expectation, and then they get out to the workforce, and suddenly there's 100 people going for one job, and they don't get the job. Well, but I've always achieved everything. I've been wonderful, and I'm great, and I've been awarded things. So it's important for us as educators, as parents, that we teach children that it's okay to fail at something or to not get something, but we need to learn those strategies of persistence and persevering and continuing to move forward even when it doesn't work. I think picking up that rate of depressed, unhappy people in their 20s is really, really important. And same goes for teens. The amount of teens that have suicidal thoughts have increased to up to 82% in some countries. So Australia and the US are actually quite high in their teen suicide thoughts percentage, and that's a little bit devastating. It's already quite an emotional time for teens, and a lot of them are very unsure as it is going through. There's a lot of peer things going on that they have to deal with, a lot of hormonal changes. So I guess it's natural for their thought and their emotional balance to go up and down, but to get to the point of suicidal thoughts, that's quite significant. So we definitely want to be helping them with more strategies to help them through those sorts of, what would you call it? Those sorts of ups and downs, I guess, through those years, to help them hopefully not as many of them having those sorts of thoughts in another 10 years. So building a growth mindset creates a love of learning, and it also creates resilience, which leads to accomplishment. So what we're really looking to do here is to get the children to enjoy the process of learning, to understand that all challenges have failures, and failures are okay. I mean, I'm all for failures. We do high fives on failing. It's awesome. As long as we're looking to improve and we're looking at other strategies if they're not working and those sorts of things. Okay, so what are the challenges? So some challenges that we're going to come across while we're trying to do this with our kids is actually our own mindset. And the more you're working with your kids on this, the more you will start to pick up things that you do, thoughts that you have, thoughts, maybe inner talk that you have, the way you express something outwardly. You might then reflect back and go, oh, hang on, where's that coming from? So some of the biggest challenges are actually going to be our own challenges. It does take a belief in growth mindset in order to help others with it. So if you are, I know that growth mindset has been kind of bombarded into the school system, I guess is one word. Lately, it's a bit of a buzzword. I guess the way that a lot of the education system has pushed it is to just try and push it out there and make it happen and get it done, and it's being taught as a separate subject. But the teachers aren't necessarily on board with it, I guess, because they don't understand it as well as they could, or they haven't experienced it themselves, and it's being added to their workload rather than being something that goes alongside of what they're already doing, which is how I feel that it should be. And we will talk about strategies with that, which is the whole point of this, is to make sure that when we get to the tips part, it's going to be things that you can do, whether you're a parent or a teacher, daycare, high school, teens, tweens, toddlers, whatever age you're working with. These are going to be tips that you can do while you're doing your day-to-day stuff. So if you're a teacher and you're in the classroom, you could be teaching your content and still be doing this stuff on the side with just a few sentences. And if you're a parent and you're at home and you've got dinner and extracurricular activities and children hanging off you and all those sorts of things, it's not going to be an extra workload. It's just going to be a different way of speaking with the children, maybe a different tactic that you might take. So it's going to be very easy to implement. That's my main thing. Time and consistency. So the time factor, obviously you've got to get your head around it. That takes a little bit of time at first, but as far as implementation, I want to keep it as simple and quick as possible for you. But the most important thing, the challenge is going to be consistency. So if people don't get this to work, it's usually because they're not consistent. And it doesn't mean that you have to be perfect all the time, because of course we all fall by the wayside, and we have a bad day and we're tired and we get a bit grumpy and whatever. But just being as consistent as possible along the way and not changing really has to be a consistent effort. Immersive rather than separate or add-on. So that's more for the education system, so more for the teachers, daycare people, but rather than it being a separate subject or an add-on subject or an add-on topic that the kids are learning, it really should be an immersive type thing. So it's just a part. It runs alongside your literacy lesson. It runs alongside your maths lesson. It runs alongside your art lesson. It becomes a part of the language that you're using with the children. So that's actually a tick for saving time for teachers. And for me, this is really important. I feel that Carol Dweck's work was a little bit misunderstood. She did define that there's at one end or the other, there is a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. So they're the polar opposites, I guess, if you looked at the scale. So, fixed is the can't change the way things are. It's stuck how it is. And the growth, obviously, is the growing and changing, improving side. But what I believe in is more of a continuum of mindset. So depending on the topic as well, they might be more growth mindset focused on one thing and more fixed mindset focused on a different thing. And so it's our job to move them along that continuum so that they move towards the growth mindset for each thing that they're working on. Okay, so what does it include? Understanding fixed and growth mindsets. So just to reiterate, we'll look at more of this later on, but the fixed mindset is really like, I'm just stuck in my ways. I can't do this. I've never been able to do it. It's impossible, those sorts of things. And then the growth mindset, is more around, well, okay, I'm not able to do this yet. How am I going to be able to do it? What other strategies can I use to make this happen? What's my end goal? How can I get there? So it's thinking about making it happen rather than thinking, that's it, I can't do it. Growing our own mindset. So we're going to be, while we're growing our children's mindset, we're going to be working on our own as well. Using strategies that encourage growth mindset. So some of the topics that I'm going to be covering over the weeks, we'll be looking at perseverance. So persisting even when it's challenging, tough, even when you fail, those sorts of things, having grit and determination. Learning to love learning. So a lot of kids really get stuck on, I can't do it, that's the end. I'm never going to be able to. So we want to go through a process of learning to love learning, including putting effort in, failing at things, accepting challenges, rising to those challenges, dealing with challenges, those sorts of things. Gratitude. We want an attitude of gratitude. Gratitude is a great way to get kids to stop, and even adults, to stop thinking about themselves and start thinking about everything else that's happening. And it's a really good way to turn a negative into a positive. So if they're really down on a topic, maybe I've used maths a lot today, let me pick something else. Maybe it's art. Let's be art. Maybe they can't draw right now the picture that they want to draw and they're really down and negative. Looking for the gratitude. Well, what can I do? What wasn't I able to do before? What am I grateful for? To have the experience to be able to do art, to have pencils that I can color with, those sorts of things can just change that mindset a little bit and move towards a positive. Empathy, so being able to listen, hearing feedback, constructive criticism, those sorts of things, understanding where other people are coming from, putting yourself in other people's shoes, those sorts of things really important for children and adults as well. It becomes less about them, more about a community. Kindness, so giving, consideration, helping others and helping the world. And confidence. So confidence is a big thing with the little ones as well. And as they get into teens and they start, as we get more and more fear into us as we grow, we lose a lot of our confidence. So the importance of taking risks, and it's okay if you take a risk and you fail. We're just going to be looking to improve. Okay, so let me stop this video and then I'll do a separate video for the quick tips side of things, just in case people wanted to separate that.